with someone, please do me a favor, okay? Tell the leader of the current administration, PM Mitchell, that he has never been, he is not, and he never will be Maurice Bishop. Please let the gentleman know that and make sure that it sinks in so that he fully understands that he truly is not Maurice Bishop, and stop trying to live the fantasy to the detriment of Grenadian people. It seems like the gentleman is hell-bent on gambling and jeopardizing the livelihood and lives of Grenadian people. And for someone who is never wrong in difficult times, I can only imagine in times of actual physical danger for Grenada that he would be the first one to probably run and hide under his bed. So stop all the bravado. Stop all the showboating. And I understand that the gentleman loves adulation. Okay? And I understand every opportunity where he can come across as some radicalized socialist Marxist defender of Grenada, defender of the Caribbean, with empty words. Okay? Because the people, his peers in the Caribbean, behind his back, are laughing at him. They're probably cracking jokes behind his back. Now you have to understand, let's be realistic now. When Maurice Bishop was making his utterance, and when he had in nobody's backyard speech and all that he was saying that was anti the West and anti-America, understand that the gentleman had the backing of at least a local military force. He had young men and boys manning anti-aircrafts, okay, moving around with a little bit of artillery, RPGs, and Kalashnikovs. So at least if Grenada was threatened, at least there was something to defend the soils of Grenada. So you're living in a different time. Grenada has none of that. But the gentleman think is wise after he already antagonized, in some respect, the United States and wanted to offer up himself and Grenada as some sort of interlocutor in the U.S.-Venezuela spat. The gentleman now comes and antagonizes Trinidad and pretends to project some sort of arrogance against Trinidad. And talking about, oh, Trinidad being friends with a bigger nation, the only thing that's going to happen is the bigger nation is going to gobble them up. When Grenada was friends with Russia and Cuba, there wasn't that concern that the bigger nations would have gobbled them up? So what are you saying? When you are trying to get closer to other bigger nations, aren't you worried that they might gobble you up? Now I'm starting to understand the gentleman's MO, okay? His modus operandi. I am starting to understand what the gentleman does. I have a strange feeling the gentleman is like some of them young men and some of these kids when we were in high school. We used to call them crammers. You know what's a crammer? A guy or a girl who the night before the exam goes and reads everything about the subject and fills up their head with everything about the subject. And then the next day now, when they go into the exam, they get totally confused and uses everything out of context. So I see the gentleman talking on Trinidad radio, okay? And being in some respects antagonistic to Kamala Bissessa Prasad, okay? And the gentleman went into a rant. The gentleman went into a bunch of garbled statements. You couldn't even follow what the gentleman was saying because it was all over the place. So he said a lot of nothing but empty rhetoric. And this gentleman thinks that is wise. No, he said one thing, that obviously Trinidad has a big brother right now, the United States. So he think it wise, okay, to go and antagonize Trinidad while they have wisely made an alliance in their benefit with the United States. Strategically, that's wise, right? And the gentleman used the word strategy. Does the gentleman understand strategy? Making reckless statements and reckless moves, even in regional politics, it shows and it testifies that the gentleman understands nothing about tact and diplomacy and has learned nothing after all that has transpired in the region. His learning curve has decreased. So you think you're smarter than everybody else. And that just tells me how much you regard the intellect of Grenadian people. You think you can talk down and dishonor and disrespect the intellect of Grenadian people. Because we stupid, we don't have sense. And you're the brightest paper-pushing lawyer. But I'll have you know, you are gravely mistaken. Because quite to the contrary of what you think, there are many Grenadian people who see through your gimmick, who see through your charlatanistic political attitude. And we will not sit by idle while you dishonor, disrespect, and talk down to the Grenadian people. We're not going to be like some of your followers who has raised you to some sort of godlike character and who engage in idol worship of you because they don't know better. Quite to the contrary, there are many Grenadians, okay, would call out the nonsense fantasy. The nonsense fantasy that you're trying to project and pass off as diplomacy. Remember, there will only be one Maurice Bishop. Only one. And there never will be another.
You'd see more and more recognition that continuing to go it alone and trying to partner with a bigger, more dominant partner in the hope of being safe is actually not a strategy that works usually in the long term, because the problem with an unequally yoked, significantly asymmetrical power relationship is that they will always gobble you up. She's been consistent. What she said in her speech is what she said publicly in terms of some of the issues from a Trinidad and Tobago specific perspective, in terms of the challenges with crime in the country, with drugs, with gangs, etc. And her perspective as to where she thinks she can get help to address that. So that has largely been consistent. We appreciate that obviously they're the closest neighbor to Venezuela. And we do know even under former Prime Minister Rowley, attempts were made to in fact grant amnesty to, or at least some form of amnesty to hundreds of, if not thousands of Venezuelans who are in the country. So we appreciate that they...
Okay, so there you have it. I mean, if you want to hear the rest of it, go listen to it. But it's just a bunch of rambling. You know, one minute he's trying to say, oh, you'll be gobbled up by a bigger power. And then he tries to justify what Kamala is doing, you know, and saying that she wants to go it alone. She's not going it alone. She's just saying she doesn't mind the cooperation with the Caribbean. But when it comes to political sovereignty and making decisions, ultimately should be made in the best interest of the country that you're representing. Hopefully, Mr. Prime Minister, you understand and learn some of that. So, take a look at page out of Mia Mottley's book. Okay? Learn something from Mia Mottley. You know, it's always said in the annals of politics that sometimes say less than is necessary.
If you would be willing to share your thoughts on Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessa's speech yesterday.
No, because I'm going to a meeting.
Would you be willing to speak with us sometime later?
I'm not sure.
Do you think that
Then, you know, so don't try anymore.
We will look out for an opportunity to speak with you a little later.
Yeah, the meetings don't start. I don't talk in advance of meetings.
All right, thank you so much, Prime Minister.
All right, take care. All the best. All right, Simon. They want to know what is it that separates our princess.
We are both sisters in law.
And let me just say that we will resolve differences without the cameras and without the microphones. Thank you.
Now there you have it. That is tact and diplomacy. And that is why these women will always put you guys to shame. And where are the adults in the room? Who is advising this gentleman? Where are the adults? Comrades, Lieutenant Colonel, the Lieutenant, the Majors. What are you guys doing? You guys know better. Someone, anyone, please talk to the gentleman. Teach him a little bit of tact and diplomacy. Okay? We have already seen how the livelihoods of Grenadians have been disrupted. And if we're not careful in our approach to regional, global, and international issues, we may suffer even more consequences. This is not a time to F around, so to speak. These are serious times politically that we are living in the world. And there are many people who are not playing around. There are some nations that would not allow anything to get into the way of their foreign policy. So let us wisely and smartly, as a nation, tread cautiously. The time for fantasy and showboating are over. The gig is up. Let's take off the MAURICE mascot now. It's over. The future and the lives of Grenadian people are at stake. The games are done. I know we want to live and be and come across and enjoy the high life like some sort of African king. That is why you notice a gentleman is gravitating to these people in nations and societies where they seem to have unlimited power. But that does not work in Grenada. Grenadians will not stand for that. You can't be driving around in 200 grand BMW while you can't even pay the salaries of workers. That is cruel and unkind. And the people of Grenada will never forget how you treated them. Y'all like revolutionary talk? Long live the people of Grenada. Forward ever with true, genuine, honest leadership that cares about the people. Not charlatans, not intellectual petty bourgeois, and downright not people who try to take advantage of our people.